Coming up on TekThing, upgrade Flash and Chrome like now, people. A little help buying a new PC for college, a Gmail update that is life-changing. Don't kill your standing desk, and let's talk all about that information about you that's on the internet. All that and more coming up next on TekThing. If you get something useful out of this episode of TekThing, please consider contributing to the show at patreon.com/TekThing. When we hit our next milestone, we'll add an additional monthly build video just for our patrons. Thank you so much.
I'm Shannon Morse.
And I'm Patrick Norton.
And this is TekThing, where we make technology behave.
At least on the good days.
I make my technology behave.
We rescue dogs.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's a thing. Don't leave your dog sitting in a warehouse porch in Richmond, because I'll take it someplace to make sure it's safe. There was no tags, but it was chipped. Happy ending.
Well, you did the right thing by
Yes.
taking it to make sure that it was okay.
Yes. Well, my son wanted us to take the dog home, and I'm like, would you want someone to steal your cat? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, we don't know whose dog this is. He's like, okay.
Aww.
7-year-olds get so sad when you won't let them bring home a second dog or an
That's
iguana.
true. My mom let me take home all the animals. I ended up with a zoo, but that's not why we are here. We're actually here to tell you about all the craziness that's happening on the internet.
Speaking of which, update Flash in Chrome now.
Immediately.
If not sooner. This Adobe Security Bulletin, Security Updates for Adobe Flash Player, came out a couple days ago. Look, it's real simple. There's a pretty nasty heap buffer overflow. There are exploits in the... I'll quote. Adobe says these updates resolve a heap buffer overflow vulnerability that could lead to code execution. That's CVE 2015-3113. And this isn't theoretical. Adobe is aware of reports that this exploit is being actively exploited in the wild by limited targeted attacks. Systems running Internet Explorer for Windows 7 and below, as well as Firefox and Windows XP, are known targets. That said,
oh, man.
Well, look, it's really simple. Windows, Macintosh, Linux, Internet Explorer on 8.0 and 8.1, Chrome, all need to be updated. If you've never updated Chrome before, so this is Chrome that I'm running on my machine right now. Click on these bars over here and go down to About Google Chrome, and it will check. And it'll basically check. And if the Google Chrome is not up to date, you can update it. And if it's not up to date right now, update it, because you have a nasty version of Flash that can be exploited and used against you against your will. For everybody else, it's basically go to git.adobe.com//flash player and download the new version. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
This is why we do ThreatWire, which is another show on the Hack 5
We'll
channel,
talk about security later in the show.
Yeah,
We'll
this is why we do that. So we can talk about it every day.
Oh my goodness. So Google, or Gmail I should say, is allowing takebacks.
Oh my God. I'm so they are. They're letting you take back what you said. So I mentioned, speaking of Google, I showed this to my coworker, and she seriously replied, "Really? This is life-changing."
Which makes me wonder, since Sarah's like the sweetest person on the planet, what kind of email she's been sending that she wants to take back. So this is undo send for Gmail on the web.
Yay! So this allows you to undo a message that you just pressed send on.
Okay.
So it never actually hits their servers. It's just like in a waiting mode for a few minutes
And
before you actually send it.
10 seconds?
So they give you a couple options. I actually have this under my Gmail settings tab. So you just go over to General in your Gmail settings and look for undo send, and you have the option to set it to 10 seconds, 5, 10, 20, or 30 seconds. So they give you ample amount of time to, read over it, and if you see a typo, or if you forgot to add an attachment, for example, or if you just don't want to send that super flame baity email, you have up to 30 seconds to just delete it or undo it.
So basically you have up to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So think quickly. So HBO Now, I thought I was signed in, but apparently I'm not signed in. HBO Now,
awesome.
right, is going to be available on Android later this summer.
Yay.
But you were really excited about what's going on with Hulu and...
I am. Showtime.
Okay.
Yes. So this is like just a sign of the times for me. Again, we're seeing another like cable channel going to the internets. So Hulu and Showtime have decided to pair up under Hulu's paid subscription service, which is like $8 or $9, and you also get Showtime shows on Hulu.com as well. So this includes shows like I believe Homeland, Dexter. There's a new one up at the top called Scroll Up. What is that called?
Masters of Sex or Ray Donovan.
Yeah, Ray Donovan.
That's a tough-looking guy.
Weeds is on there, so I'm pretty excited about that. I'm considering going back to my paid subscription on Hulu just for this.
Really?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
Will the Showtime episodes be ad-free?
I cannot confirm nor deny whether that is the case, and that is one of the irks, which is one of the reasons why I canceled my Hulu subscription, is because you still had ads. So I guess we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We wait with bated breath.
So we do.
Oh my goodness.
And moving on, we got a question from Dylan in Antioch, California, who writes in, I will be transferring to UC Davis this fall, and I am looking to replace a 6-year-old MacBook Pro. That's old, dude. Do you have any recommendations? I am looking for another Mac, but I would also consider a Windows PC. Should I go with another MacBook Pro or the new MacBook? Thanks, from Dylan. Thank you, Dylan.
Hey, if you like Mac, stick with Mac. You can always run Windows on it. Yeah, like college is going to be exciting enough, plus the social activities and the mayhem.
True.
Don't learn a new operating system, and unless you're going to be live in 3D CAD CAM apps or video editing, I'd skip the MacBook Pro and go with the MacBook. The Air is really tempting. In my experience, the Air kind of tends to suck wind after a few years, but at least now it's funny because the new MacBook Airs, at least you can update them now to 8 gigabytes of memory.
That's it?
Well,
I mean, I guess that's good for general browsing and watching Netflix,
Yeah.
but if you do anything other than that, you're going to have some issues.
Yeah, I would say 8 gigabytes is the entry level, especially for OS X. Man, I always recommend checking the university's computer guidelines.
Yes.
For UC Davis, it's computerownership.ucdavis.edu. And one of the things, I love the fact that we strongly recommend against using only a tablet or other small mobile device for your work. And there's some really good stuff if you click through, there's pre-arrival advice. And I thought this was great. This is essentially the IT service for all the students at UC Davis. And they're please, make sure your operating system is up to date, know what your warranty coverage is, know what your charge is, bring a surge protector, an extension cord, an Ethernet cable, guidelines for what you can do with the wireless network and stuff.
When I was in college, we did not have this list of things to do with your home computer because nobody had laptops at school yet.
There were at least 3 computers in my dorm at school, and most of the rest of the people used rocks and tablets. One of the things, and I go to the store, especially on the Windows side of things. Paul, who's editing right now, is shouting out about this, but I think you're getting I think this is a $50 discount. So the MacBook stuff is not a huge discount because Apple controls its channel pretty tightly. But if there's student discounts, especially on applications, they can be huge. Definitely check to see if you can get a discount.
Yeah.
And depending on your major, you should probably, I don't know if you're a freshman or a junior at this point. If you have a major selected, check the school's website for recommendations. Certain departments will have very specific requirements. Case in point, if you're, say, an engineering student and you need to run this application and there's no Mac version, then you need to own a version of Windows on that machine. And now you might want to go back and talk about a Windows machine. I'm in love with Dell's XPS 13.
Yes, it's a really good machine. I would recommend that one for school.
I would also recommend at least a 13-inch screen on a portable, although I will say I have been fairly happy with an 11-inch screen and a monitor at my desktop.
And good battery life so it doesn't die when you're in the middle of class trying to take notes.
Yes.
That would really suck.
And a backpack with a padded sleeve or a padded sleeve for the laptop, because nothing says finals week like a broken screen and having to borrow somebody's monitor. Or if let's not talk about that. Let us instead talk to Darren about what's up on Hack 5 this week.
Patrick, we are having so much fun on Hack 5 this week. We're turning one of these bad boys, a little Intel NUC, into a virtual server that you can run in your home lab environment. Tons of different machines off of this bad boy using free and open source software, and we get it done in just a few minutes. It's so simple. Tune in to hak5.org and find Shannon and I building all sorts of good stuff. You could probably put one of these together with just parts you have under your bed right now. We'll see you over on Hack 5.
We've been talking a lot lately about upgrading your smartphone photography and when it's time to step up to a dedicated camera. Now we've got Lori Grunin, CNET's senior editor for reviews digital imaging, and she's going to talk cameras with us. Welcome to TekThing, Lori.
Yay.
Lori's been super patient as we worked out some exciting Skype audio issues. But we should talk, last thing you reviewed was it the DxO? It's like a $600 add-on for the iPhone?
I haven't reviewed it yet. It was actually just announced last week, but I did get to touch it and play with it. And it's actually really cool because if you've seen the things like the Sony lens cameras, to me they're really clunky.
Right.
They're they're almost juggling solutions. Whereas this, it sticks in the iPhone via the Lightning connector, and it just seems really elegant. It's got a 20 megapixel 1-inch sensor, and it just sounds really good. When I get to use it, who knows? I may just do an about face, but we'll see.
A 1-inch sensor seems pretty massive for something that small that's clipping onto a phone.
It's actually not that big. And the device is, about, I don't know if you can see it, about this big.
Okay.
But 1-inch sensors aren't as big as they sound.
It's just, okay, it seems like compared to the little hole in the back of the phone, it sounds huge. Well, let's talk about, if we're looking at your sort of recommendation for an entry-level camera, the Canon PowerShot SX600HS versus, say, the camera in an iPhone or some of the better Android phones. When is it time? Is that a step up from an iPhone camera, or is that sort of a sideways step at this point?
I'd call it a sideways step. What you gain is a zoom lens, sometimes faster performance at everything except for sort of the single shot where, shoot it. In that respect, the compact cameras still aren't as intelligent as phones. But for action shooting where you need a burst mode, they tend to be better. Mostly though, you want it for the zoom lens.
Is that pretty much the main difference, the glass at this point, the ability to zoom optically?
Well, frankly, glass is the most important thing at this point on any camera. It's what differentiates them. Especially when below like an APS-C size sensor. And the glass on phones tends to be not very good. And the other thing that you gain by going to a zoom lens is different appearance for your photos. With a phone, you basically have the same angle of view every time. You're either macro or wide angle.
Right.
Whereas with a zoom lens, you can change it up and take photos of. You can get rid of the extraneous stuff, the edges of the frame that you don't want there.
So when is it time to step up to, say, an enthusiast compact, like the Lumix DMC LX100, the DMC FC1000, or even go ahead.
Okay. The minute that you look at your photos and you say to yourself, these don't look as good as I thought they did, that's the time to step up. If you're not noticing a difference, then, chances are you're happy with your phone. The other time is when you realize that you want a better lens. You want a fast lens, and you want to be able to change the aperture, which changes the way the background looks. You get various levels of out of focus and what the out of focus highlights look like and everything like that. On phones, basically you just have a single aperture and they just electronically change the amount of light that hits the sensor. So then they have to go back and algorithmically, defocus it. That's what all those defocusing effects are for. Whereas with a camera, you can actually change that yourself.
So one of the things I noticed that I was kind of surprised by, you guys have a review of Nikon's D3300, and the entry-level prices for a DSLR is so low. At what point, do you go DSLR versus, the mirrorless cameras?
Well, interestingly, in the U.S., most people are still going for DSLRs. This is one of the few places where the mirrorless really hasn't gained as much traction. When you hit that point, you're looking at performance. The DSLRs are still easier to shoot action with. The optical viewfinders, the way they're built, they're just, at least I find that, if you're shooting photos of your kids and pets and, your kids are into sports and stuff like that, that's, to me, really the defining line between a DSLR and a mirrorless. There's some really fast mirrorless cameras, but they're more expensive than the entry-level DSLRs.
I have a couple questions for you from some tips from your buying guide. One of the things you guys talk about, you and Joshua Goldman wrote that up, is don't get hung up on megapixels or, for that matter, any single spec for a camera.
Yeah, it would be really easy if there were a spec that told you whether a camera was good or not. Even the specs that matter, such as continuous shooting rate, the vendors play a little the manufacturers play a little fast and loose with that spec. You want the camera to have fast continuous shooting with autofocus and with auto exposure. A lot when you see the really high, 15 frames per second rates, that's with the focus fixed on the first frame and without changing the exposure. So if you're photographing your kid who's running under, the clouds move by and they're running down the field, the exposure changes, but it won't change in the camera.
Oh, interesting.
The other thing is, if you know anything about physics, something moving across your focal plane like this the distance at either end is further. So
Sure.
you focused at a far distance, and as it moves by, it's going to be out of focus. So that's why unless you're planning on shooting somebody jump roping, running in place,
Right.
that's when it doesn't matter if it's fixed on the first exposure. So specs are important, but you can't run your life by them.
So you can't run your life by specs. And then one of the things you note is also that there's no best or editor's choice camera in most categories. And that's because every camera is a pretty serious balancing or juggling act.
Yeah. I tend to award editor's choices when the camera doesn't have a lot of caveats, meaning I think that it's recommendable to a large varied bunch of people as opposed to a very narrow segment. So that's why, for instance, the Leica Q, which just came out, which I love, but it's $4,300.
Ow.
Not an editor's choice is something
Sure.
that somebody can go to and say, oh, without even reading it, oh, that's probably a good camera that I want to buy. But the Leica Q, yeah, for people with money.
I'll sell my truck, buy a Leica Q, because I've been coveting Leicas since I was a child. I still can't afford them.
Wait for your midlife crisis.
No, I'm not allowed one. My mom made me promise. No midlife crises. Anything coming up on CNET that you can tease for us?
I just got the D70-200, which is Nikon's mid-range DSLR, which I'm looking forward to testing. And I've been working on the NX500, which is the Samsung ILC that has all the components of the higher-end NX1 in it. I'm discovering that it doesn't translate so well to a lower-end camera. But since I'm still fact-checking on that,
We will wait for the report, and we will check on CNET.com. Lori, thank you so much for making time for us.
always great to see you.
Thanks. Hey, got a camera tip or a suggestion? Do us a favor, email ask@TekThing.com or tweet @TekThing, and we'll share it with the audience. It's time for our HostGator Disruptive Tech of the Week, and I'm going to say let's talk about security. I was thinking about this a lot last week with the breaches at the Office of Personnel Management. I love that, OPM.gov, they're essentially the HR branch of the United States government, updated information about recent cybersecurity incidents, which is a polite way of saying that we got hacked and a lot of information is out there.
14 million people's information.
Yeah, it's crazy and unhinged. But the Adobe Flash problems this week kind of really hammered it home for me. Security is important, and if you're looking at school for a major or a new direction at your company, if you're retooling in life, if you've got any curiosity about coding or getting your sysadmin on, I would really just get up to my neck and my eyeballs and over my head in security. We're finding enough security and privacy news for Dan and Sharon and I to fill 3 episodes of ThreatWire every week. I mean, if you take a look, youtube.com/hack5, let's see. We've got the nasty hash flag today, wireless password hacking, the PETA wireless, literally people are now figuring out ways to pull passwords out of the air, which means I guess we'll have to use brain connections, but it's crazy. Another 14 million people have been docked, 0-day exploits, China cracking Tor and VPN.
Basically, it goes on and on.
It goes on and on. It's really crazy. And what's so frustrating about this, some of the really smart observers, Krebs quoted some people that were really great, talking about the OPM hack. These were known problems. We're looking at stuff like ancient known coding problems like buffer overflows are still tripping up the code we use every day. Social engineering is trumping good security, whether it's somebody on the phone or really good spear phishing emails. And that's not even getting into the art and science of hacking and penetration testing, which uncovers new flaws and problems every day, even if you do have a bunch of coders that have the money and the time to do it right. The OPM problems were a giant sprawling system that was poorly secured to open up opportunities for exploits. The Internet of Things, oh my goodness. Major manufacturers are going to be recycling low-rent code from third parties, usually by just slapping a new interface on it and not much else. Think about problems with your friends and neighbors and coworkers that don't bother to update their operating system, their antivirus, their anti-malware, or my personal favorite, simply not changing the password on your router. All these things need to be fixed, maintained, and managed. And from what my friends say, working in penetration testing and security pays way better than games development, unless you're one of the top games in the iTunes store, in which case you're probably taking home bank, and good for you. Seriously, lock your tech down. Help your friends and family lock their tech down, and look for opportunities at school, at work, because I think security is going to be unhinged and amazing. And if you, say, do start an InfoSec business, do us a favor, host it on our sponsor, HostGator.com, and use the coupon code TekThing to get 30% off any new hosting package. You'll help support the show, keep it coming to you each and every week.
I just want to keep on going with this. Like, yeah, security! Talk all the security all day.
We got a very lovely email today, and I didn't put it in the show because I suck, but it was one of the things they said. It's like, you talk about security lock, but it's important, and we'll stop for now until the next thing, but man,
yeah.
At the very least, make sure your system's updated, make sure your software is updated, make sure your anti-malware is updated, make sure your router's updated, maybe make sure you either put an open source operating system and or get a new router if it's one of the ones that are subjected to the most recent buffer overflow. Oh goodness, I'm gonna stop now. We have a question from Thomas. Thomas wrote about his Rosewell Gaming Thor V2 desktop tower. And he's looking for an under-the-desk mount for it. He says, hey guys, love the new show. Do you have any suggestions on how I can fit this case, plus the UPS I also have, into a sit or stand configuration? Is there a CPU holder out there I could use? Should I get cable extensions for everything? Should I either force myself to be content with the CPU on the desktop or move the PC guts to a smaller base? Thanks, Thomas.
So I ended up looking up his computer because I was really curious about how big it is. So his PC tower, the Rosewell Thor V2, is 22.84 inches by 9.14 inches by 21.89 at most.
So like 2 foot by 2 foot by 9 something.
Yeah, it's really, really big. And I'm going to guess that it's probably really, really heavy too. So I know you mentioned this. You were like, don't put it on top of the desk.
Well, it's funny. So we've tested everything from, like, I hacked together some IKEA furniture into a standing desk to some less expensive motorized standing desks to some incredibly expensive standing desks. And I'll say it right now, some of them are good. What's the one you have at home?
I have the UpDesk Upright.
Okay.
So that one's crazy expensive.
Well, we had Anthony Carboni and I on that. That's like 500 pounds. Well, okay, probably 400 pounds because Anthony's a little guy.
You can put people on it, and it's fine.
So that with your, a really solid motorized sitting standing desk will handle the weight of that PC. I would put it on top of the PC rather than hanging it.
Yeah.
But I would probably just put the tower on the floor.
I have to agree with you. I have mine on the floor at home. Of course, I have cats and tons of dust bunnies on the floor, so you could also consider putting it on top of some kind of mount. Well, not a mount, but some kind of stand like an Apple box. So yes, this one is expensive, but you can always build your own, or you can find something similar to it to just set your desktop PC on top of.
Get a vintage milk crate off Etsy.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, super, super cheap. Like, you could probably just take one from somewhere, a milk crate. Just make sure you ask before you do that.
That's theft.
So you could stand your tower underneath your desk, and it should be fine, and that way it would keep it away from dust bunnies. I wouldn't recommend it personally on top of the desk because, not only is it going to take up a lot of room, but it also might add a lot of weight to one side or the other, depending on which desk you get, and it could, over time, damage your desk.
Well, and that's what it really depends on the build quality of your desk.
Yeah, it does.
If they use the cheap actuators, you're going to find out if you have 40 pounds is sitting on one side of your desk and not on the other, you'll hear this. It'll start to stick. It'll start to grind.
Same thing goes with a mount, of course. So if you have a mount that's underneath one side of your desk, it could mess up the levers and the motors on that one side because it's heavier on that one side and not as heavy on the other.
Or the chain drive or the screwdriver, whatever crazy mechanism they have.
And then depending on the electronics that you have on top of your desk, you might not even have to get any extension cables. For example, my desk at home, I have my router, my Sonos, the connection thing, whatever they call it, all that stuff on top of my desk, including my monitor, and I can still raise my desk up to full height and stand at it, and I don't need any extension cables. Everything still reaches the floor, and the tower down there just fine. But if you do, they're readily available.
Yeah.
You can find extension cables on Amazon for super, super cheap for pretty much anything. So you should be fine.
The little zip ties that either have the sticky on them or can screw in the bottom. If there's no cable
Yes.
routing inside a lot of these desks actually have really sophisticated cable routing inside of them. Just make sure if you don't have sophisticated cable routing built into your desk that you mount the cables, even if it's just duct tape under the bottom of the desk. Make sure all of your cables are routed so they don't get pinched anywhere, because there's
Yes.
nothing sadder than an editor that's on deadline that has to run to the nearest store to buy another keyboard and mouse because they severed the cable when they, hey, my, and then you laugh, right? But just
I believe
pay
you.
attention. I'm just saying. It's cool though. So do you pretty much constantly use your standing desk at home, or do you just leave it in one position? Do you stand?
No, I use it up and down. It kind of just depends on my mood at that time. I don't try to do it for a certain amount of time every day or anything like that. It's just like, I don't feel like sitting down because I can just stand up and do this thing. And it also depends on if I'm wearing heels. Because heels are very tiring to
You
stand
wear
in.
heels at home?
Well, if I'm
You're
coming
so
home from work,
sophisticated.
I just sit down to play a video game. I'm like, I'm not going to wear heels and stand at my desk.
You could kick your heels off.
I could.
Oh my goodness. Patreon, people. Do you want an extra episode of TekThing every month?
Yes.
Something where Shannon and I concentrate on a build, say a new $500 gaming PC or
Yes.
some crazy Raspberry Pi contraption. We're going to add a build each and every month if we can hit our new milestone goal of $2,500. Your Patreon contributions keep the show going. Patreon.com/TekThing is the place. And if you can't donate, no worries. Just keep watching. Please take the time to send us your questions, tips, and to share the show with your friends and family. And if you can, give our video the thumbs up on YouTube and the like in on our Facebook page and reviews on iTunes. Each and every bit of it helps build the audience and keep us going so we can keep the show going every week to you. Thank you so much. Ask@tekthing.com is the email address. @TekThing is our Twitter address. And hey, if you want to go to Facebook, facebook.com/TekThing, we're starting to add news articles on there, so we have exciting stuff in between each weekly show. In any case, Andrew wrote ask@tekthing.com. Hello, Patrick and Shannon. I've been wary about my personal information being out on the internet for a while now, and I've become even more concerned having checked my family members' names and seen the amount of information out there. I've searched and found numerous websites that claim they can take your information off a, quote, limited, unquote, number of websites, but there are varying prices and some have subscriptions. Do you guys have recommendations on websites to do this? Do you guys know of a way to do this without spending a dime? Do you have recommendations on things to do to help keep your information off the internet? Signed, Andrew, who apparently has something to hide. Because if you didn't have something to hide, you'd be okay with your information being out on the internet.
All right.
I'm
So-
kidding, by the way.
I'm preparing for this question. That was a lot of questions. That was like 3. So I have a bookmark folder of sites that I'll check like regularly. And they help me for all of these cases where I'm like, hey, I don't want my info on the internet. So I always go to these websites to check and figure out what I need to do. So anytime you sign up for a site that ships you products that you buy or that you give your phone number to a site, et cetera, who knows if they're selling that information to third-party marketers?
Right.
Yes, their privacy policy might say they don't, but what if they get hacked and then that information is sold on the black market? You don't know. And once the info is out there, it's very, very hard to remove, if at all. I mean, pretty much, if it's on the internet, it's going to stay on the internet. But I wanted to give you a couple of examples in case you want to take an active approach to this. So first off, there's this website called Crash Override, and this is an online anti-harassment task force. It's a website dedicated to helping people that have been doxxed, which is to say that their information has been publicly released without their consent. And they've compiled a huge list of sites that are like online phone books for people. Not by their
my eyes are
consent.
closed and I'm nodding my head because, some of the information out there is publicly available, and that's what's so funny, because sometimes you'll run into websites that list information that's available for free if you just go to, the county or state or federal website.
Yeah, absolutely.
But in the case of doxing, it's usually information that isn't supposed to be public anywhere that somebody's been like, hey, I've got pictures
Like
of
your pictures, social security
Homework.
numbers, your phone number if
Right.
you have a personal private phone number. If
Credit
you're
cards.
if you have credit cards, they might post those somewhere. You might have heard of Spokio, which posts people's addresses without their consent.
Yay.
But they find this information and they've created this huge website where they just post everything. So Crash Override made this list. They have an article that says prevent doxing, and if you scroll down, they have all these massive lists of online info brokers and opt-out information for each site. If you click on them, it'll direct you directly to the opt-out info for whatever that website is. So PeopleSmart directs you all the way to their opt-out information. Secondly, I also wanted to add in that if you've ever signed up for sites in the past that you don't use anymore, you can use this website to get directly to their info for deleting accounts. So this website is called justdelete.me. This site also directly sends you over to these different account systems, and you can automatically delete your info out of them. It also tells you how easy it is or how hard it is to delete your account from them. Some of them it's impossible, like they always have your account if you signed up, like Animal Crossing community. Some it's very easy, like the Amazon AWS system. So if you click on that, it takes you automatically to the account where you sign in. And then you can just put in your information and change it or update or delete it as necessary. I also wanted to mention a few pro tips, which I've kind of figured out throughout the ages and also listened to at security conventions too. So a few pro tips for you for online shopping. You might want to consider a P.O. box instead of your home address for ordering, which does cost a little bit of money, yes, but it also saves you the headache of having random spam being sent to your home address.
We call that junk mail in the meat space world.
You can also consider like using a prepaid card or a card specifically used just for online shopping. So if a website does get hacked, they don't end up getting into your personal checking account or something like that. And when you do sign up for a site, use an alternate spelling of your name or a fake name. This sounds kind of weird, but if you use an alternate or a fake name, you can kind of figure out which sites are selling your information without your consent by looking at how your name is spelled on those third-party sites.
Somebody I know used to use a different middle initial each time they signed up for something, or it'd be like A, B, C, D, then it'd be like A1, and they kept track, and that's how they kept track of that. But one time,
it's funny, but it works.
One of the things we got a response to recently was reminding us that one time use credit cards. Sometimes your bank will offer these, where you can have a credit card number generated just for that individual transaction. Although the new credit card technology is helping to speed that along. So in theory, now that I have my new credit card with a little chip, that the processing system will no longer allow Target or Home Depot or some other large retailer to force me to re-sign up for everything in my name because their security got stomped on.
Also a secondary email address too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you don't end up with a bunch of spam that just floods your personal email account. And again, once that info is on the internet, assume that it's there forever, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't take action whenever you come across your private information. I mean, search for yourself on Google. That really helps bring up information. Being active and aware of what you are putting on the internet can over time decrease the correct information that's there on the internet for other people to find too.
Yeah.
Especially if you move around a lot.
Or if you've got kids in high school and junior high school right now, it's intense. Like I am so looking forward to my children being in junior high school and high school and what sort of internet-related drama will be popping up.
Teach them early what kind of information should and should not go on the internet.
My favorite question ever, one of my favorite questions ever, how do I keep my parents from seeing what I post on Facebook? And you can't. That hot chick from Nebraska is probably your mom using a fake photograph, and you're telling her everything. If you don't want people to know about it, don't post it on Facebook.
Oh, that is awesome.
Or the internet. And that, ladies and gentlemen, wraps up this episode.
But before we go, I did want to remind everybody that once in a while you want to get rid of your phone. Well, not get rid of it, but just put it away or leave it at home. Step away from the screen, close your laptop, and do something really cool and really analog, like riding a hoverboard.
You are so invested. This is an advertising campaign from Lexus of all people.
It's a total ad. Here, I'll turn it down.
But apparently they have like big old magnets and liquid nitrogen, and they're claiming there's a skateboarder using an actual hoverboard in a skate park.
So supposedly we're going to see video of this guy actually riding the hoverboard eventually, but we haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
Honestly, if it was me, I would just fall on my face.
You have been giddy about the hoverboard all morning long.
I have. It's cool.
It is cool.
It's very like Back to the Future, you know?
I want a hoverboard around Richmond. Yes. With my big old tank of liquid nitrogen on my back to keep it from falling and getting me run over. I'm Patrick Norton.
Gladly pay to see that. I'm Shannon Morris.
We'll see you next week on TekThing. On the railroad tracks? Hoverboarding on the railroad tracks?
Ooh, that would be cool. A little help when you need to buy a bunny.
What to do with your aardvark poo and how you can use it to make the most amazing tomato garden ever. dog back. So don't leave your dog abandoned in Richmond, because I'm gonna rescue it. My son's gonna try to adopt it. This is what happens when I get 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep. I'm giddy.
Wow. No wonder you're on top of things today. You're like,
Yes, deep play.
like yes, ollie.
Fall, you die, people.
I used to be able to do ollies
Ollies.
in high school.
I like saying ollies.
That was the only thing I could do. I
Kick
was like,
flip.
oh, I did it! And then I would break my knee on the curb or whatever.
I miss playing in traffic in New York on a skateboard. These people, however, are individually responsible for helping keeping the show going each
Oh,
and
the
every
people.
week.
You should
Thank
make
you.
a song for them.
I've been singing all morning, and I'm not going to hurt anyone by doing that.
All our fans are awesome!
No, don't sing that tune, because then we'll get a takedown order. Because tunes, you can't, you don't, no, but yes.
You can see like 2 seconds and they won't take it down.
Yeah, we'll find out about that. All it takes is one takedown notice, and suddenly the channel is gone.
No!
Exactly.
No!
Exactly.